In the early 1920s, during the colonial era in Manila, Windel Reyes, a dedicated playwright, harbors a passion for art that burns brighter than the struggles he faces daily under colonial rule. Windel's writing expresses themes of freedom, identity, and rebellion, yet he feels as though something vital is missing from his life, something that no script or scene can fulfill. One evening, he decides to attend a performance at Teatro de la Luz, an ornate, dimly lit theater in the heart of Manila, where only the elite gather to watch the finest artists perform. There, he witnesses a breathtaking soprano performance by Meriam Singson, a celebrated singer with a voice both haunting and ethereal. As she sings an aria filled with longing and heartbreak, Windel is entranced, unable to look away. Her voice resonates deeply within him, seeming to echo the sadness and yearning buried in his own heart. For Windel, this is no ordinary encounter. He feels as if her voice has opened a door within him, awakening emotions he thought he had long buried. As the audience erupts into applause, he realizes he must meet her, certain that she is the missing inspiration he has been searching for. Determined to connect with the woman who has unknowingly touched his soul, Windel waits patiently outside the dressing room corridors. When Meriam finally emerges, he is nervous but manages to introduce himself. She recognizes his name from the whispers about his controversial and boundary-pushing plays, which challenge the colonial authorities and touch on themes rarely spoken of in public. Their conversation is brief but electrifying. Windel expresses his admiration for her performance, telling her that her voice seems to capture the very soul of the city and its people's hidden pain. Meriam, who often feels misunderstood despite her fame, is taken aback by his sincerity. She has grown used to empty compliments from admirers, but Windel's words hold a depth that moves her deeply. In return, Meriam shares how she, too, feels trapped by societal expectations, longing to perform music that reflects her true self rather than what pleases the upper class. As their conversation continues, they begin to see reflections of their own struggles in each other. This brief exchange becomes the beginning of a profound bond, one that transcends words, rooted in a mutual understanding of their shared loneliness. Over the next few weeks, Windel finds himself attending all of Meriam's performances, admiring her from the shadows as she pours her heart into every note. Despite the crowds and the applause, it is as though her music is meant solely for him. Meriam, in turn, begins to anticipate his presence, sneaking glances at him during her performances, her heart racing each time she sees his intense gaze fixed upon her. One evening after a particularly moving performance, Meriam finds Windel waiting for her outside the theater. He offers to walk her through the quiet, lamplit streets of Intramuros, Manila's historic district, where cobblestone paths and ancient walls stand as silent witnesses to centuries of stories. They walk side by side, sharing thoughts, dreams, and fears that they have never voiced before. Underneath the soft glow of the street lamps, Windel speaks of his struggles to have his work recognized and the pressure he faces from the authorities to silence his art. Meriam listens, her heart aching for him, understanding all too well the weight of a life constrained by expectations. In a moment of vulnerability, she admits to feeling like a bird trapped in a gilded cage, her every action monitored by her family and society. That night, as they part ways, they realize that their connection goes beyond mere admiration. It is a solace, a quiet understanding between two souls burdened by the weight of their worlds. As Windel and Meriam's connection deepens, they begin meeting in secret. In a secluded area of Luneta Park, under the shelter of a sprawling acacia tree, they find a sanctuary where they can escape from the expectations and scrutiny of society. Surrounded by the night and the rustling leaves, they share whispered conversations, stolen glances, and gentle touches. Windel reads to Meriam passages from his latest play, pouring his heart into words that mirror their own situation. A love caught in the tension between desire and restriction. Meriam, in turn, sings softly to him, a melody filled with sorrow and hope, a song meant only for his ears. Her voice wraps around his words, and together they create a harmony that feels both fragile and eternal, a shared dream that they dare to believe in, if only for a few moments. Each encounter strengthens their bond, though they both know their love exists in a world that forbids it. Meriam's family has already begun pressuring her to consider suitors from high society, while Windel's impoverished background and revolutionary spirit make him a dangerous match in the eyes of society. Yet, in their secret moments, they find a love that feels pure and sacred, a refuge where they can be true to themselves without fear of judgment. As they continue to meet, they find themselves falling deeper into each other, drawing courage and inspiration from the shared dream of a life free from the constraints that bind them. They know that the outside world may never understand, but in the hidden shadows of Luneta Park, they hold onto a love that defies the rules, a love that, for now, is theirs alone. Windel and Meriam's secret meetings continue to deepen, becoming the sole reprieve in their otherwise constrained lives. They find solace under the soft moonlight in Intramuros, the old heart of Manila, where history feels alive in the stone walls and lantern-lit alleyways. Despite the dangers of being seen together, their connection grows stronger each night. One evening, as they meet by the centuries-old walls, Windel brings a single red rose, a symbol of his quiet but unwavering affection. He hands it to Meriam with a smile that hides his fear of their love being discovered. Meriam takes the rose, her heart pounding as she realizes just how significant this moment is. She knows the risks involved in their relationship, yet she finds herself helplessly drawn to him, as if fate has bound them together. They walk through the park in silence, occasionally stealing glances at each other, their hands brushing together as they stroll. Underneath the vast Manila night sky, their unspoken emotions hang heavy between them, and Windel finally whispers, "If only the world allowed us to be free." Meriam looks at him, her eyes filled with both longing and sadness. Though they share these stolen moments, she knows they are trapped by circumstances beyond their control. The relationship between Windel and Meriam continues to grow in intensity, leading them to a night filled with courage and vulnerability. On this particular evening, they meet at the edge of Rizal Park, where a quiet corner near the lake offers them a hidden refuge. Windel, struggling to find words to express his love, speaks passionately about his latest play, describing how he poured his soul into it, each scene a testament to the beauty of love and the pain of separation. Meriam listens intently, her heart swelling with admiration and a profound sadness. She realizes that his words are not only an expression of his art, but also a mirror of their own forbidden love. Unable to resist the pull any longer, Windel takes her hands in his eyes searching hers for permission. In a quiet moment filled with unspoken promises, he leans in and gently kisses her, a kiss that speaks of love, longing, and the bittersweet knowledge of their inevitable separation. The kiss solidifies their bond, making it clear that their love has transcended mere admiration. They are each other's refuge, each other's hope in a world that seems determined to tear them apart. As they part that night, both feel a mixture of joy and sorrow, knowing that their love has grown deeper yet faces obstacles that seem insurmountable. Their love blossoms in the shadows, a forbidden romance that gives them strength yet brings anxiety as they grow increasingly fearful of being discovered. Meriam's family, unaware of her secret relationship with Windel, pressures her to meet with high society suitors. Her parents have long dreamed of an advantageous marriage for her, and Meriam's hesitations only bring their frustrations to the surface. Despite the pressure, Meriam stands firm, finding small ways to avoid the suitors and gatherings arranged by her family. Each time she defies her parents, she feels a sense of rebellion, a quiet victory that keeps her connected to Windel. For Windel, the stakes are even higher. Rumors of his political leanings and subversive writings are drawing attention from the authorities, and he knows that any public association with a woman of Meriam's status would only add fuel to the fire. Their meetings become shorter, more cautious, yet each encounter is more intense, filled with a sense of urgency. They begin to discuss the future, daring to dream of a life together far from the restrictions of society. But deep down, they both know that escaping their current lives would mean abandoning everything they've known. In a rare moment of peace, Meriam convinces her family to let her take a trip to the nearby countryside, using the excuse of needing a quiet retreat to practice for an upcoming performance. Secretly, she arranges to meet Windel in a secluded garden where they can spend an entire day without fear of being seen. They wander through the lush garden, surrounded by vibrant flowers and towering trees that shield them from the world. Here, in this hidden paradise, they can be themselves without fear or restraint. They talk for hours, sharing dreams, fears, and promises of a life they both yearn for but cannot have. Windel speaks of his desire to take her far away, to a place where they can live freely and pursue their passions without judgment or restriction. Meriam, torn between her love for him and her duty to her family, listens in silence, her heart aching at the thought of leaving behind the world she's always known. Yet, with Windel by her side, she begins to believe in the possibility of a new life. They share a final, lingering embrace, each of them holding on tightly, as if by doing so they can somehow stop time. As they part that evening, the weight of reality settles heavily on both of them. They know that their love is growing stronger, but that the world around them is closing in. They leave with a promise to meet again, but both feel the shadow of impending heartbreak. Meriam and Windel's love grows, but so does the tension around them. Their forbidden relationship has not gone unnoticed, as whispers begin to spread in Meriam's social circle. Her family becomes suspicious of her increasingly reserved and quiet demeanor, often noticing her distracted state. One evening at a high society dinner hosted by her parents, Meriam's mother brings up an arranged meeting with a prominent family's son. The suggestion horrifies Meriam, yet she tries to hide her emotions, not wanting to risk exposing her secret. Meanwhile, Windel is tormented by the risks Meriam is taking for him. He knows her family would never accept him, but his love for her is relentless, an anchor he cannot let go of. Windel throws himself into his art, hoping that his plays might somehow capture the intensity of his feelings for Meriam while concealing the true nature of their love. Every word he writes is both a confession and a plea for a world where they could belong together. In the quiet shadows of their secret meetings, Windel and Meriam speak openly about their fears. She expresses worry about her family's plans to introduce her to suitors, and Windel confesses his fears about the authorities. Watching him, despite these threats, they cling to each other, finding solace in the depths of their love, feeling that even if the world turns against them, their bond is worth every risk. As Meriam and Windel's love story intensifies, the strain on their lives grows. Windel's friends begin to question his absences and his distracted nature, sensing that he is entangled in something dangerous. While he tries to remain vague, he can't resist speaking of Meriam, his muse. His friends warn him, reminding him of the political risks and how the wrong association could destroy his career. Yet Windel knows he can't abandon Meriam. His love for her has become the one constant in his tumultuous life. One evening, after a chance run-in with an acquaintance of her family, Meriam finds herself cornered in a conversation about her mysterious absences. She's forced to make up excuses on the spot, feeling both guilt and anger at how trapped she feels in her double life. Desperate for a sense of freedom, she convinces Windel to take her to a hidden art gallery in the city that few people know of. The gallery becomes a haven for them, surrounded by bold and expressive paintings that seem to mirror their own lives. As they admire the works, Windel promises Meriam that he will write a play in her honor, capturing the beauty of her spirit and the pain of their love. Meriam is deeply moved, realizing that Windel sees her in a way that no one else does. Their love, despite the challenges, is an unbreakable thread binding them, defying reason and restraint. Meriam begins to feel suffocated by her family's expectations and constant surveillance. She confides in Windel, expressing a longing for freedom, a life without the confines of social obligation and familial duty. Windel, emboldened by his love for her, proposes an idea that is both thrilling and terrifying. They could escape together, leaving behind the world that has bound them. Meriam is overwhelmed by the suggestion, torn between her love for Windel and her sense of duty to her family. The idea of abandoning her life is both exhilarating and terrifying. Windel suggests they could flee to Sagada, a quiet town known for its stunning mountains and peaceful isolation. He paints a vivid picture of a life where they could live together, away from the eyes of society, free to love each other openly. Though tempted, Meriam hesitates, knowing that leaving her family and social standing would be an irreparable act of rebellion. Yet the thought of a future with Windel haunts her, making her question everything she's ever known. She begins to dream of a life beyond the walls of her family's home, a life filled with freedom and love. But even as she imagines it, she knows the reality of their situation might prevent such a dream from ever coming true. Their love reaches a peak, both in intensity and in risk, during one of their clandestine meetings in a hidden corner of Binondo, a district where they can blend into the crowd. They share an impassioned conversation about their future. Windel reveals the first draft of the play he's written, a story that subtly mirrors their own struggles and dreams. Meriam is touched beyond words, recognizing the sacrifices he's made for her and the depth of his love. In that moment, they realize just how much they mean to each other. Their love has become a force that neither of them can deny. Yet they are all too aware of the dangers that surround them. They share a tender embrace, a moment of pure connection that seems to transcend the limitations of their lives. They know that, no matter what happens, their love has changed them both forever. As they part that night, both are filled with a mixture of hope and fear. They've reached the point of no return, fully committed to each other yet uncertain of what the future holds. Their love, once a secret, has become a lifeline, a source of strength in a world determined to keep them apart. Meriam's family is growing increasingly suspicious of her behavior, noting her long absences and her distant demeanor. The once lively girl they knew now seems preoccupied and anxious. Her mother, sensing that Meriam is hiding something, pressures her into meeting a suitor from a wealthy family. Meanwhile, Windel is becoming more cautious, aware of the growing scrutiny around him due to his political writings and associations. During one of their meetings in a secluded area near Manila Bay, Windel senses Meriam's anxiety and tries to reassure her. He reminds her that no matter the challenges, their love is worth fighting for. Meriam finds solace in his words, but her heart is weighed down by the impending suitor meeting that her family has arranged. As they share a tender embrace, a family acquaintance stumbles upon them, her eyes widening with shock before she hurries away. Panicked, Meriam and Windel realize that their secret may no longer be safe. They part ways with heavy hearts, knowing that the days ahead will test their love like never before. The news of Meriam's encounter with Windel spreads quickly through her family and social circle. Her parents are furious and summon her to explain herself. Confronted with accusations and threats, Meriam stands her ground, admitting that she has fallen in love with Windel. Her family is outraged, viewing her relationship with him as a disgrace to their status. They demand that she end the relationship immediately, threatening to cut her off if she disobeys. Meriam, torn between her love for Windel and her loyalty to her family, feels trapped. She tries to explain to her parents that her love for Windel is genuine, that he is more than just a struggling writer with political views. But her family refuses to listen, viewing Windel as a threat to their reputation and future. In desperation, Meriam seeks out Windel, hoping to find strength and solace in his presence. When they meet, she tells him everything, her voice filled with despair and uncertainty. Windel listens, his heart breaking at the thought of losing her. Yet he remains resolute, promising her that they will find a way to be together, even if it means sacrificing everything they know. As their situation becomes increasingly dire, Windel devises a plan. Knowing that Meriam's family will stop at nothing to separate them, he proposes they elope to Cebu, a distant island where they can start anew, away from the scrutiny and judgment of society. The idea is both thrilling and terrifying for Meriam. She knows that leaving her family would mean severing ties with everyone she has ever known. Yet the thought of losing Windel is even more unbearable. Meriam hesitates, aware of the consequences but yearning for freedom with Windel. They plan meticulously, deciding on a date and the details of their escape. They promise to meet in a secluded part of the city before boarding a boat to Cebu. Each is filled with a mixture of hope and fear, aware that they may be risking everything. In the days leading up to their planned escape, Meriam does her best to maintain a facade of compliance. Her family, believing she has ended her relationship with Windel, begins to relax, even arranging another meeting with a suitor. Meriam, however, is focused solely on her plan to be with Windel, her heart racing at the thought of finally finding freedom. On the day of their planned escape, Meriam slips out of her home in the early hours, carrying only a small bag with her belongings. She hurries through the city, her heart pounding as she approaches their meeting spot. But as she arrives, she is met by her father and a group of men who have been waiting for her. Her father, furious and heartbroken, has discovered their plan and is determined to put an end to it. Meriam is forced back home, her heart shattered as she realizes she will not be able to see Windel. She is confined to her room, forbidden from leaving or contacting anyone. Days turn into weeks, and she feels her spirit slowly breaking under the weight of her confinement. She dreams of Windel, wondering if he has given up on her, or if he is still waiting, hoping that they might one day be reunited. Windel, unaware of Meriam's fate, spends days and nights searching for her, desperate for any sign of her whereabouts. He fears the worst, but his love for her remains unbroken. Each day without her feels like an eternity, yet he holds on to hope, clinging to the belief that they will be reunited, no matter the cost. As they are torn apart by forces beyond their control, both Windel and Meriam are haunted by memories of their love, each of them vowing to find a way back to each other, despite the seemingly insurmountable obstacles that stand in their way. Meriam, trapped within the confines of her family's home, feels the walls closing in, days blur together, and loneliness takes over. Yet her love for Windel gives her strength. She dreams of the time they spent together, remembering the thrill of their hidden moments and the promises they made to one another. Her heart aches with the thought of Windel waiting for her, as she imagines him tirelessly searching for a way to find her. Her family keeps a close watch, controlling her every move, but Meriam finds solace in writing letters to Windel that she hides beneath the floorboard in her room. In each letter, she pours out her heart, writing as though he can hear her, letting him know that her love remains unwavering despite the forced separation. She expresses her hope, her longing, and her determination to find her way back to him, even though she knows he will likely never see these letters. Windel, too, is consumed with thoughts of Meriam. Every corner of the city seems to remind him of her, and he visits all their meeting spots, holding on to the hope that one day she might be there, waiting for him. He throws himself into his writing, pouring his emotions into each word, crafting a story that reflects the impossible love they share. Friends urge him to move on, but Windel's heart belongs entirely to Meriam, and he cannot imagine a life without her. As the weeks pass, Meriam's father begins to loosen his grip, believing that her confinement has broken her spirit. This slight relaxation of her restrictions gives her a sliver of hope, and she starts planning a way to escape and reunite with Windel. Late at night, she secretly gathers her belongings, preparing herself for the moment when she can slip away unnoticed. Through a sympathetic maid, Meriam manages to send a coded message to Windel, letting him know that she will attempt to escape in 2 nights. The note is brief but clear, and Windel, upon receiving it, feels his heart surge with anticipation. He makes arrangements to meet her and plans a route to a nearby town where they can hide until they find safe passage to Cebu, far from the reach of her family and society's judgment. When the night of her escape arrives, Meriam carefully slips out, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She moves silently through the halls, feeling as though every shadow holds 1,000 eyes. But the thought of seeing Windel again drives her forward, giving her courage. As she approaches their meeting spot, her pulse quickens and her hope swells. In the dim light of dawn, Meriam and Windel finally see each other from across the courtyard where they had planned to meet. The moment feels surreal as they lock eyes, and for a heartbeat, time stands still. Then they rush toward each other, embracing tightly, both overwhelmed with relief and joy. Tears stream down Meriam's face as she clings to Windel, unable to believe that she is finally in his arms again. Windel holds her close, whispering reassurances and promises, vowing that he will never let anything come between them again. Together, They run toward the carriage Windel has prepared, their hearts beating in sync as they envision a future of freedom and love. They share a quiet, intimate journey, savoring every moment, each glance, each touch, feeling as though they have been granted a second chance. As they travel, Windel speaks of their plans, detailing the life they will build far from the judgments of society. Meriam listens, her heart swelling with hope and gratitude, knowing that she would willingly leave everything behind for the chance to be with him. Together, they dream of a life filled with happiness, away from the shadows of the past. Their joy, however, is short-lived. Meriam's family, upon discovering her absence, quickly mobilizes and sends men to track her down. Windel and Meriam, believing they had escaped unnoticed, are unaware of the pursuit until it is too late. As they near the edge of the city, they are intercepted by her father's guards, who have been ordered to bring Meriam back by any means necessary. A tense standoff ensues, with Windel attempting to shield Meriam from the guards, who demand she return to her family. Meriam pleads with her father's men, begging them to let her go, to allow her the freedom to be with the man she loves. Her words fall on deaf ears, as they view her relationship with Windel as a stain on the family's honor that must be erased. In a final, desperate act, Windel stands between Meriam and the guards, refusing to let them take her without a fight. Meriam, heartbroken and terrified, watches as Windel is struck down by the guards, his face etched with sorrow and love as he reaches out to her one last time. She screams his name, but her voice is drowned out by the chaos around her. As Windel lies wounded, Meriam is forcibly taken back to her family, her spirit shattered, her heart broken beyond repair. She realizes that the world they live in will never allow their love to survive, and a deep sorrow settles within her as she is dragged away, feeling as though a piece of her soul has been torn away forever. Meriam is taken back to her family's home, where she's immediately confined to her room. Her father's anger is fierce, and he vows that her connection to Windel will end, no matter the cost. He views their love as a disgrace to the family name, something to be stamped out. Meriam, however, cannot let go of Windel so easily. Every inch of her being is filled with sorrow and defiance. Her heart aches for him, and she feels as though she's living in a prison of her family's making. Days pass in a fog of pain and silence. Though she is surrounded by luxury, her life feels hollow, each reminder of Windel bringing with it a fresh wave of grief. She has no idea whether Windel is even alive after the brutal confrontation with her father's guards. Left in the dark, Meriam clings to their memories, letting them sustain her even as her spirit wilts under her family's pressure. Despite her father's strict rules, Meriam secretly composes poems and songs about her love for Windel, pouring her heart and soul into every word. Windel, though wounded, has survived the attack, but he is left scarred, both physically and emotionally. Every breath reminds him of his love for Meriam and the torment of being separated from her. Against all reason, he refuses to give up. Though society looks down on him and her family despises him, Windel's love for Meriam is unwavering. He becomes a man possessed, haunted by her absence, willing to sacrifice anything for one last chance to see her. Despite his weakened state, Windel begins writing a final piece, pouring all his despair, hope, and love into it. He calls it a hymn, a song to honor the tragic beauty of their love, a love that might never be accepted by the world. He spends days and nights crafting each line, imagining that Meriam might somehow hear the words and feel the intensity of his emotions. Windel tries to reach out to those close to Meriam, hoping they might help him reunite with her, but every attempt is met with cold rejection. He becomes an outcast, his reputation tainted by his association with Meriam. In his moments of solitude, Windel reflects on the impossible obstacles that have always stood between them, yet his determination does not wane. If anything, his love grows stronger, burning with the desperate hope that he might see Meriam once more. In an unexpected turn, a mutual friend, pitying their plight, secretly arranges a brief meeting for Windel and Meriam. Though the risk is immense, both of them are willing to face anything for a few stolen moments together. They meet under the cover of night, hidden away from prying eyes, and for a brief time, they are able to hold each other once more. The reunion is bittersweet, filled with tears and whispered words. Meriam clings to Windel, her heart breaking with the knowledge that this might be the last time she'll ever see him. She shares her poems and songs, allowing him to see the depths of her love, and he, in turn, reads aloud the hymn he has written for her, a hymn that captures the very soul of their tragic love story. As they embrace, they both know that they are living on borrowed time. Their love, as beautiful and profound as it is, seems doomed to be a fleeting memory. Yet in this moment, they are whole, connected in a way that defies the conventions and judgments of the world around them. The moonlight casts a gentle glow over them, making their reunion feel almost ethereal, as if they are the only two people in existence. Before they part, Windel makes a vow. He will immortalize their love through his writing. Even if they cannot be together in this life, their story will endure, a testament to the kind of love that defies reason and transcends every boundary. Their brief reunion only strengthens Meriam's resolve. She realizes that a life without Windel is one of darkness and emptiness, and she decides to leave her family's control once and for all. But fate, as always, has other plans. Just as she is about to escape, her family discovers her intentions. This time, their response is even harsher, ensuring that she will have no means to reach Windel again. Meanwhile, Windel is left to wander the city, yearning for one more glimpse of Meriam. His heart is heavy with the realization that their love might truly be at its end. Each day, he becomes more consumed by despair, his health deteriorating as he loses hope. Despite everything, he holds on to the hymn he wrote for her, hoping that she might somehow feel his love through the words he has crafted. In a moment of painful clarity, Meriam decides to make a final, heartbreaking sacrifice for Windel's sake. She knows that if they are to live in constant fear and secrecy, their love will never be free. In a letter, she tells Windel to let her go, to remember her through the hymn, and to find peace, even if it means living without her. She promises that she will always love him, but her love cannot bear the thought of seeing him suffer. Heartbroken, Windel reads her letter over and over, each word cutting deeper into his soul. Though he is devastated, he understands the selflessness of her decision. He makes a quiet vow to honor her wish, but the pain of their separation lingers within him, deep and abiding, a sorrow that will remain with him forever. Following Meriam's heart-wrenching letter, Windel is left shattered yet resolute. He decides that if he cannot be with her, he will honor their love by immortalizing it. With all the passion and pain inside him, he refines the hymn, transforming it into a masterpiece that captures the depth, intensity, and tragic beauty of their love. As he pours his heart into his writing, Windel becomes consumed with memories of Meriam. Their stolen glances, whispered promises, and the gentle touches that bridged the chasm society tried to place between them. Every word he writes feels like a tribute to her spirit, the essence of a woman who loved fiercely, despite the impossible odds. Windel becomes a recluse, isolating himself from society, devoting his life to finishing the hymn. Though the world may never understand their story, he believes that by completing this hymn, he can create a lasting legacy of their love. Meriam, meanwhile, is locked away in her family's home, forced to live as a shadow of her former self. Forbidden from seeing Windel and forbidden from expressing her pain, she becomes a ghostly figure, moving through the halls as if she's already living in a memory. Her family, intent on controlling her every move, eventually arranges a marriage to a wealthy man, hoping to finally erase her love for Windel and secure their social standing. Faced with a future that feels like a slow death, Meriam decides to defy her family one last time. In a bold act of rebellion, she escapes one evening, heading to the place where she and Windel had once shared their dreams together. She knows the risks of defying her family, but she's willing to face any consequence if it means being true to her heart. She believes that by going to their secret place, she can feel close to Windel once more, even if only in spirit. Under a blanket of stars, Meriam spends her last night of freedom, pouring her soul into poetry, leaving behind a book of verses she hopes Windel will one day find. She writes of their love, their sacrifice, and her unending devotion, capturing the essence of a romance that, though fleeting, will remain eternal in her heart. In a strange twist of fate, Windel discovers Meriam's hidden poems and realizes the full extent of her love for him. Her words, like the hymn he composed, speak of an undying love that defies life and death, a love so profound it has transcended all barriers. This realization strikes Windel deeply, reigniting his resolve to honor their love by sharing their story with the world. Windel performs the hymn for a small gathering of close friends and artists, hoping to bring Meriam's spirit to life through his music. His voice, filled with a raw, aching sorrow, resonates with everyone who hears it, capturing their hearts and leaving them in tears. The hymn becomes his greatest work, a haunting melody that echoes their love and loss. People who listen to it are moved by the sheer emotion of the piece, though few know the tragic love story behind it. As the hymn gains recognition, Windel feels that he has fulfilled his promise to Meriam, preserving their love in a way that will endure beyond them. Yet, he is still haunted by her absence, and every day without her feels like a new wound. He continues to live in solitude, his life dedicated to the memory of Meriam and the love they shared. Eventually, Windel learns that Meriam's family has forced her into a loveless marriage. This news devastates him, yet he accepts it, knowing that their love has always been a tragic story. Though they cannot be together in life, he believes their souls are forever entwined, bound by the intensity of their love and the sorrow of their separation. Windel retreats further from the world, pouring his remaining energy into his art, creating a legacy that will continue to carry the memory of their love. In his final days, Windel feels a strange sense of peace, as if Meriam's spirit is watching over him. He completes a final piece, a poem about eternal love, a love that exists beyond the confines of mortality. As he writes the last line, he feels her presence near him, a comforting warmth that eases his loneliness. He passes away that night, with a gentle smile on his face, as if he is finally reunited with his beloved Meriam in the afterlife. News of Windel's passing reaches Meriam, who, though trapped in a marriage devoid of love, feels the weight of his loss deeply. In a moment of quiet defiance, she plays his hymn one last time, allowing herself to grieve the love she was forced to abandon. She closes her eyes and lets the music wash over her, feeling as though Windel is there beside her. Their souls connected once again. Meriam finds solace in the thought that, while they were separated in life, their love will live on, immortalized in the hymn that captured the depth and beauty of their tragic story. As years pass, their story becomes legendary, a tale of two lovers who defied society's constraints and lived a love so profound it transcended even death. People continue to play Windel's hymn, moved by the haunting melody and the story of love and loss it represents. Windel and Meriam's legacy lives on, their love forever preserved in the beauty of music, a reminder that true love, even if brief, can leave an indelible mark on the world. Years pass since the tragic end of Windel and Meriam's lives, yet their love continues to echo, haunting the hearts of all who hear their story. Their hymn, now known as the Eternal Melody, becomes a revered masterpiece, treasured not only for its haunting beauty but for the story that inspired it, a forbidden love that transcended life and death. As society moves forward, the Eternal Melody becomes a cultural phenomenon, touching lives far beyond the borders of their homeland. Decades later, a young musician named Elias discovers Windel's hymn. Drawn to its raw emotion, he becomes captivated by the music and the tragic love story behind it. He sets out to learn more, uncovering the original poems Meriam left behind, and realizes they are filled with secrets, coded messages, and hidden notes that reveal her deepest feelings for Windel. As Elias explores their story, he feels as if he's connected to their spirits, awakening their love once again through the melody. With every note he plays, he senses the intensity of Windel and Meriam's passion, as if their souls still linger in the haunting music. Elias decides to travel to the old locations Windel and Meriam shared, the hidden garden, the library where they exchanged letters, in the secluded chapel where they first confessed their love. As he retraces their steps, he imagines their secret meetings, feeling a profound bond with the lovers from the past. Inspired, Elias composes a piece dedicated to their memory, adding a new chapter to the eternal melody. This added harmony transforms the hymn into something even more powerful, a true testament to the timeless nature of love. One night, as Elias performs the eternal melody before a captivated audience, he feels an unexplainable presence, the energy of Windel and Meriam, as if they are sitting among the crowd, listening to their story retold through his music. Moved beyond words, he plays the final notes with the tenderness of two souls finally at peace. When the last note fades, the audience sits in awed silence, deeply moved, feeling as if they too have experienced the love, loss, and beauty of Windel and Meriam's lives. As the eternal melody gains worldwide fame, it becomes known as the Hymn of Love, a piece synonymous with everlasting devotion. It touches countless people, inspiring artists, lovers, and poets who see in it the timeless beauty of true love. Windel and Meriam's story becomes a reminder that while their bodies may have left the world, their spirits live on in the music, their legacy unbroken by the passage of time. The tale of Windel and Meriam, carried by the melody, continues to inspire generations, a testament to a love that was never bound by the limits of life and death. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more delightful stories.